When you're at the
Right.
point where you look at your day and there's zero white space, and you look at your week and there's zero white space, and there's not even time for you to think about your business, that's usually for me a telltale sign that we need to start to recalibrate here. If we were to hire somebody to help with, let's just go operations, let's think through the functionality of operations and start to list out some of the core areas in your business you would actually have them own.
Hey, Jackie, so good to see you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So in your own words, can you tell our listeners who you are, what you do?
Well, I just said this to you, Shannon, but I'm Jackie. And what I do, Shannon, is I help small businesses and entrepreneurs find epic humans to really unlock the leaders of those business to step into their passion and their gifts. And sometimes it's not doing the work. So I really help you find people in order to enable that. Beyond that, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a Canadian. I love athletics and sports. And you'll probably hear a couple French swear words through this episode with me when I get passionate. So
Perfect.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much. I'm ready to add some value to the listeners.
Love it. Love it. And we were just talking that you and I both come from corporate. So we're all used to this like polished, nice biography of like, here's what I do. And I've practiced it and rehearsed it. And it's like, can I just say, I'm Jackie, I'm Shannon. Nice to meet you.
Right. I have this really, we all have these really sexy executive bios and, I have credentials and have worked at big corporations. I worked at PepsiCo for 15 years and was an executive VP of HR. And those all feel really sexy, but I've done a lot of work at letting go of titles and truly just authentically stepping into who I am. And so I'm Jackie and I'm here to serve.
Perfect. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because for those who don't know, I worked with Jackie to hire my first real, I'll say like full-time-ish person, someone who's committed, right, to a steady amount of hours with me in my business and really embedded into my business. And I'm ever grateful for the strategies that we talked about and what we've been able to implement. And this advice that I had taken, well, I wish I'd taken sooner, but the advice I'd taken from our mentors was, hire before you're ready. And I feel like every business owner is now hearing this advice from influencers, experts. I'm supposed to hire before I'm ready. When am I ready? And how do I figure out, how do I backtrack before that? My type A brain was like, okay, but when? Because it's always before I'm ready until I am. And I think I waited until I really hit that point of burnout before I went, okay, it's time. How do people know when they're ready?
What a beautiful question. And I feel like even in your example, Shannon, like living through the burnout was the moment where therefore you felt ready.
Right.
And so I'm a big believer in hiring people and developing teams needs to be customized. So we hear these kind of blanket statements of hire before you're ready and always hire an admin first, as an example. And there is some merit to some of that, but I always like to take it a step further and say, okay, but now let's look at Shannon. Let's look at her background, her leadership, her business, and her growth, and figure out when does it make sense to hire? Who does it make sense to hire? And where in her business is she looking for an unlock so that she can step into her gifting more and serve more people? It always becomes the ripple for me of I do what I do so that Shannon can step into her greatness and therefore serve more people. And so it's always that constant ebb and flow. Here's what I will say though. I think as leaders, and this is across, I've worked Fortune 50 organization, I've worked mid-sized companies, and for the last 6 years, I've been really focused in small business and entrepreneurs. I believe we are reactive at hiring in general, meaning it takes pain for us to realize that we now need somebody to come into our house. And the Achilles heel of being reactive is we make knee-jerk decisions and we can hire very quickly and we can sort of get the box right and just try to shove somebody in there. That's more or less what we need because we're in a panic and in a state of fear and we're in a state of burnout. And therefore, we're not making decisions from an aligned place. So I do feel like proactive measures in thinking through who, what, where, when is important, even if you're not hiring today, even to just start thinking about it as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses, so that you can really think through a 6, 12, 18-month hiring plan for your business.
That's perfect. And to that point, I mean, I hit that point of burnout where I was acting in desperation almost to say, I just need someone to get me out of this rut. I need help. I need help now. And it was definitely an urgency. And then out of that urgency, I actually made a hire that was not a good fit because I thought, well, the faster I can get this person in, onboarded and helping me, the faster I can start seeing the results. But I didn't put the right amount of time in, even though I thought I checked all the boxes, like had the job description and did all the things that you told me to do, right? What I didn't do was take my time and sit back and take maybe more weeks rather than days, right? Weeks to evaluate candidates, weeks to go through and really hone in on what did I like about this person, not like about this person, what questions are coming up after. I really kind of went with my gut. It was like dating where I said, oh, I really like this person. And I offered the job and about 2 months later, let the person go. But and I don't regret it because of what I learned.
Sure.
But what I really learned out of that was what I was really looking for and not to rush the process.
Beautiful. What a beautiful lesson for you to go through and a lesson for you to learn. You know, in a way, what you're saying is you started dating a couple people and you're like, let's get married tomorrow.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, one of the pieces of advice that people ask me a lot is, who do I hire first? When do I
Yes.
know when I'm ready to hire? These questions that we're going through. And sometimes the answer is, and especially if you're new to leadership, meaning you haven't led in your past life, you're new to leadership, this is something that's going to be developing teams and bringing on people is brand new to you. I'm a big proponent and a big fan of stepping into hiring, meaning we don't always have to go straight to marriage. We can date this person for a little while. We can look at alternative options with bringing on fractional heads. We can look at bringing on people part-time. We can look at probationary periods of 90 days. And that's why, again, we need to look at Shannon and Shannon's business and the growth trajectory that Shannon has to be able to customize a hiring plan for you. And it's not going to be the same for everybody. So to say this, your first 5 hires or my first 5 hires are not, there's not alignment there because we really have to cultivate your hiring strategy for your mission, for your business growth, and to think through who you need to really unlock what you are meant to be doing in this world to serve at the highest level.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of folks listening, right? A lot of small business owners who maybe haven't hired before, this feels like a massive commitment. This feels
Yeah.
like a huge thing that they're not ready for because they're not at that revenue level or they're not a big company or they're not doing insert excuse here, right? Like insert whatever your definition of a business is or a corporation or a company. If you don't feel like you're meeting that definition of a big company, you feel like you're not really equipped to hire. And that was definitely a roadblock for me. But having come from corporate and hired in corporate, I was like, I'm comfortable with the process. It's just knowing when is my company at the point where it can take this on from a cash flow standpoint or from a value driver standpoint. So, what would you say to those who are saying this is too much of a commitment for me? I know you mentioned a couple of things like fractional and other options. I think people think it's all or nothing.
I do too. And I hear it a lot when we get into strategy sessions. I'll get down to the end where we're starting to really cultivate who it is you need to enable the growth.
Mhm.
And I'll just walk you through high level, kind of the strategy session that I walk through so listeners can kind of place themselves into the story. So, whenever I work with a client, Shannon, we'll use you as a beautiful example. When you come in, my philosophy is I can't help you think through who you need to hire until I understand your mission with this business and your mission in life, the values in which you hold, and a deep understanding of your business. And that's both where you are today, inclusive of numbers and revenue and what we're actually bringing to the table here, and your projected growth and where you want to go. And that bridge between where I am today and where I want to go is the bridge where how my brain works is I go, okay, cool. Who are the puzzle pieces? Now we need to figure out the who to unlock that growth trajectory. Because at the end of the day, Shannon, you only have so much time. You can only invest so much energy into your business. And what happens when we bring on the right people at the right time in the right role, and I will also say at the right capacity, meaning it doesn't always have to be full time to get off, like to start. What happens is it unlocks and frees you up. And so it's less about who am I hiring? It's more about if we were to unlock 10 hours of Shannon's time, how would that enable the growth of your business? How would that enable your lifestyle even and cultivate what you're looking for in business, life, relationships, et cetera?
I love that. So in unwrapping the strategy session, tell me, what could someone do ahead of time to be the most prepared for a session like that in order to have that discussion around their mission? Maybe they don't have a definition of this, Jackie, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of going, I don't know, like to make money or to do, well, I don't know what it is. Like really like defining the mission, right? Like what is the work that you suggest that people do to enable themselves to be the best prepared for those types of discussions?
So let's use you as an example, because I find that people find themselves in stories.
Yeah.
So my first question to you when you come onto that call is, why do you do what you do?
Oh, you want to ask me right now?
I'm asking.
Why do I do what I do? Because not enough entrepreneurs feel like they have the guidance, the tools, and the knowledge to run a business successfully. And I don't think that most of the people who have small businesses fail deserve to fall in that statistic.
Wow. And when you step fully into that mission, what changes in the world?
I mean, economic changes, right? More people are in business, more people can have jobs. Um, we're standing here right now where gas prices are ridiculous. So I'm I'm
Mhm.
thinking more commerce, more activity, and honestly, and at an emotional level, more fulfillment, because I think people are happier when they feel like they're part of a mission, part of something that serves a purpose, and that people can create businesses and fulfill on their missions. Because I know so many business owners who, if you're listening out there, it's probably you, are so passionate about what you do and helping people, but financially feel like you can't sustain that mission. And to see someone drop everything and abort the mission because of their numbers breaks my heart.
There we go. So we need to just tease out that conversation, because we all know there's a deeper knowing within all of us. And if we provide and give ourselves the space to truly ask ourselves why we do what we do, and you started from a place of business and economics, which
Right.
I love and appreciate. And I'm a big proponent of, listen, when we hire, I'm not looking to make anybody bankrupt. I want to make sure that this actually fuels business and brings in more revenue because we get the right people on the bus. But at the end of the day, when you went to the emotional level, something shifted in your energy,
Right.
and you really sat into the why I do what I do is, it breaks my heart seeing people running businesses and therefore, they run out of the financial side or they can't sustain it. They can't get the foundations right to get off the ground. And I genuinely believe that once we have the core service in place and once we start to generate revenue and money, at some point in time, we need to elevate. And in order to elevate as leaders, as women in business, we also need to be comfortable delegating to other humans, whether that's partnership or bringing people onto our teams, in order to really step in and live out the bigger missions that we have in life.
Totally agree. That's so important. And I think unwrapping that from your seat as well, helps you understand, okay, this is where they're at right now and what they're trying to accomplish. It's not just about what could 10 hours a week get you back, but it's really in what direction are you moving?
Because a lot of times what I'll hear in the hiring space is, hey, list out the things that you hate doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can list out a lot of things on that list.
Yeah.
But what I'm not getting out of that is, because I could look at that and I could kind of cultivate a job description. I could post that out there. And, I would say, honestly, 8 out of 10 people would have some sort of administrative support functionality that they would need to get off the ground. But what we're not doing is understanding that by hiring that administrative human, what is the unlock for you? What is the growth trajectory because of that person in your business? And full circle, what I have a lot of people come back and say is, hey, I hired that admin. It didn't work out because what I didn't realize is that our core values were not aligned. She was not aligned with the mission, she or he, and or the energetics in which this person brought to the table was every morning at 8 o'clock, they showed up with their notebook and their pen and they sat there and asked me, what do I need to do? And what I'm trying to do is free up my time. And now I'm investing more time in telling this human what to do.
Right.
And so sometimes it's actually not an administrative person first. It could be, but often I find it's more, I said this to you right before, I said there's kind of two core functions I often tell people that seem to be a theme across entrepreneurs in a growth phase. We either need to invest in our own backbone, meaning our own structure of our business, our operations side of the business, and or there is then this moment in time where we need to invest in the core. What does that mean? Like, what is your core service? You need to invest in the core service.
Like the
I'm a
delivery of
people
it.
strategist, but I have a recruitment agency in the background. So my backbone was I hired an executive assistant who stepped into an online business manager who's now my COO and has been with me for 2 years, right? Because we've developed her into that role. And after I had my fundamentals and foundations of my business set, I had to go invest in a head of recruitment, a head of talent for myself. And that was the investment. That's a full-time investment I just made. She was part-time with me for a year. So that's again an example of where in my own business, I've stepped into hiring and I've developed people along the path with me.
I love that. Yeah. And I feel like that's exactly where I'm at now. I feel like I have the coverage on the
Yes.
operations side. I'm ready to hire another professional and I am terrified.
Tell me more. What are the fears that come up when you think about hiring?
You know what it is? I come from corporate. I come from big four firms. I come from, Fortune 50 companies. So my experience with this is the feeling of commitment and the feeling of, well, the expectation that this professional will have are higher than what I can deliver, not just in terms of potentially salary, but in terms of infrastructure operations. A lot of folks in accounting, especially in CPAs, EAs, they can easily find, in my mind, they can easily find a job that pays them in the 150 plus range with a certain amount of experience, and they can just follow a tried and true method and check their emails and go about their day. And there's a part of me that feels like I'm competing with that flow, and then there's also a part of me that goes, but I need to find that person who wants something different or wants that thing that I'm offering and not generalize too much.
Let's step into, you work for Big Four, I work for PepsiCo.
Yeah,
The question I have for you is, was that fulfilling enough for you?
absolutely not.
So with that in mind, can we not add in an assumption that maybe there's one other human out there that is not fulfilled
Right.
and cannot connect to the broader mission of what a Big Four firm is doing? And in fact,
True.
wants to work for an organization and or a leader. And often at this level, when we're hiring our second, third, fourth people, like they're coming to work for you. They're excited about you. They're excited about your clients. They're excited about your mission. And I find we miss that. We go and we slap up job descriptions and we go in and say, here's all the skill sets that are needed to be successful in this job. And at this level, when we're hiring our second, third, fourth hire, we need to be thinking, is this human aligned with the core values and the direction of where this business is going? Do they align with the mission?
Right.
And so your questions, when we start to get into questions around interviewing, are much more around, why do you do what you do? Why are you looking to join this organization? What is it that you want to live out in your life? Because you will find out very quickly if they have the same, if they come from the same ethos, the same place, and if they're going to be successful in enabling the right energy to come into a small team. And then we
That's
get
very
into
true.
skill set.
Right.
Know how to interview against skill set. I have no doubt
Yeah.
about that, given your background specifically.
Yeah. And I think that was actually the mistake I made in my first administrative hire. Was the conversation in the interview, I recall, was primarily around tactical things that they can do, they have experience with. How would you handle this? Right. It was kind of those canned questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to go there, but I naturally did because of my experience and
Right.
my comfort. But I think that what happened was, when I interviewed my next person and when I hired her, the questions and the conversation were very different. It was more about, what are you trying to accomplish? What are you doing in your business? I was actually asking her a lot more about her own, her world, her operations. And then I realized that what actually really impressed me was she followed up with me actively. She emailed me and asked for the phone call. She reached out to me and said, what are the ways that I can make your job easier in this role? And with that focus, like you said, I had the person who would sit there and do nothing until I told them to do something. And then you have this person who's saying, how can I make your life easier? Who's actively seeking opportunities to do that. It's a game changer when you have one of those on your team. And I realized so quickly that was what I wanted. That was the job description. It was actively ask me without me having to come up with content. And that was the time saver. So for anyone listening who's looking at hiring, anticipate, right? Like the ability to anticipate your needs was a huge deal breaker now. If she ever left, which I hope she doesn't, but if she ever left, I have so much more clarity now on the traits I'm looking for as opposed to the skills.
Let me ask this, because I think it's important for listeners to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
So you hired, it wasn't the right fit, and therefore you had to fire.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hired again.
Yes.
Why?
Well, truthfully, because I was still drowning in work and I needed help. That the problem didn't go away. The need for the hire didn't go away. But I also knew, based on some advice from a mentor, that if you really feel in your gut it's not working. Once I started instinctively realizing that I would rather do it myself than hand it off to this person because I don't know if it will get done or not.
Yeah.
Trust. I lost trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, what am I doing then?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's got to be someone who I would trust more than this person to do it. So I kind of just said, I need to make a call. Right.
Yeah.
I was scared, but I needed to make a call. And then it was actually quite easy because it was 2 months and it was a contractor and it was fine. But I immediately jumped into, because I just know this, I immediately, as soon as I felt the sense that I needed to let this person go, I got my notebook out and went, what are the reasons why I feel this way? And then how do I flip that into going, next time, these are the things I need to be looking for, because apparently these are my deal breakers.
Like, incredible. And thank you for sharing that. I think people need to hear that.
Yeah.
When we hire humans, it is not black and white. We are working in a gray space of human beings. And we are looking for relationships here we're looking for a cultivated relationship. And sometimes we strike out. I strike out. I've been doing this for 20 years and I strike out. And we need to be okay with that, because when we look at it through the lens of what you're just saying, Shannon, is like, you had a lived experience and therefore learned through that lived experience, a little bit of pain, but through that lived experience. And as a result, you were able to course correct. You were
Yeah.
able to tweak a little bit. And now we have a unicorn, what sounds like, in your business. And let's talk about the good news side of that. Since hiring her, what is true in your business that wasn't a
Oh my
year ago?
gosh. Since hiring her, I quit my full-time job.
Heck yes.
Because it was, and honestly, the mental clog is alleviated because there was so much going on in the back of my mind saying, I was just juggling so many plates in the air and saying,
Mhm.
I hope I don't drop one. And I was ridiculously good, I'll admit, at keeping everything in balance because I'm good with time management. And I was really proud of how I was actually able to do all this. But I was realizing that I can't keep up this act forever. I need to take a breath and this is not sustainable. So when I hired her, I immediately went to what are the things that can be offloaded right away, right? What are the easy things to offload, but what are the things that I plan to offload over time that will really free me up? So I kind of put together a list of, even before I hired, I put together a list of if someone were in my business right now asking what they could help with, what comes to mind.
Yeah.
And that was actually how I knew I was ready initially, was went through this little exercise of if I had somebody, what would I give them? Because one of the things holding me back too, that listeners might relate to, is I don't have enough work to give them. Or I feel
Mhm.
like I don't have
Mhm.
enough to hire someone 10, 15 hours a week. How do I keep them busy? What do you say to
Mhm.
folks who bring that up?
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that as well. You know what though? They often say that on the back of I'm stressed out, I'm burnt out, I have no time in my calendar, there's no white space. I'm struggling with my relationship, I don't have time to travel, I'm not living the life I want to live. I thought this entrepreneur thing was going to be easy. I've heard that enough times in my last few years doing this work. And that is usually, so let's actually go back to one of your first questions. That's one of the telltale signs. When you're at the
Right.
point where you look at your day and there's zero white space, and you look at your week and there's zero white space, and there's not even time for you to think about your business and work on your business, not in your business, that's usually for me a telltale sign that we need to start to recalibrate here. And that can be from a business coaching lens, that can sometimes be like shifting the programming, shifting how we're serving people, unlocking new revenue streams. So I always look at that as well when I'm looking at people, because I'm not going to say hire if I just genuinely believe that we can shift programming in order to really unlock your next level. Right. I
Yeah.
want to be mindful again about not breaking the bank and making sure you're really set up successfully with foundations in place to be able to afford hiring and scaling with hiring. And so what happens often is that's a telltale sign. And then they come to me and they're like, I don't know what to give them. And that's where, once we have clarity on why you do what you do, where are we today? Where are we going tomorrow? Now we can start to think through, okay, if we were to hire somebody to help with, let's just go operations, with the ops side of your business. Let's think through the functionality of operations and start to list out some of the core areas in your business you would actually have them own. So let's just do that with you as an example. So
Okay.
you hired an admin, but really focused on the ops side of your business, it sounds like.
Yes.
Talk to me about what were some of those buckets for you where you're like, this is something that they could take on.
100% it was the, correspondence and tracking of,
Yeah.
client invoices, engagement letters, um, really helping me answer those questions of, is everyone fully paid? Everyone is on track. And really just calibrating the whole client base to know that I can just do the work without worrying about, oh, did I collect that deposit? Or do I have the letter? Do we have all the records? That was like the immediate, value add for me.
So then when we look at that as an example, where my brain goes is like, once you start listing out the tactics, how, because I've built so many organizations and so many different business lines and so many different departments, where my brain goes is, okay, let's classify that as customer service or client service.
Right.
Right. And then the next one might be client experience. right? Because we want somebody to be high touch and we want somebody following up and we want to make sure that people are getting what they need. So in kind of those two buckets of what you were talking, I'm like, okay, interesting. We have client services and client experience. Services is, really customer service, thinking about it through that lens. Somebody has a question, they're getting an answer within 12 hours, let's say, versus the experience is like, hey, are we anticipating not just Shannon's needs, but are we now in a position to anticipate our clients' needs? And we're getting them information and we're serving them in a way that's, at a really high quality level. So
Yeah.
just based on what you're saying to me, I'm like, okay, cool. Now we can bucket those. And once we get all those buckets figured out, then we look at okay, if this is true, now let's place some assumptions against what's the level of hire. Meaning if I just look at the ops side of the business, this is really in the online space specifically, but I would say there's like an executive assistant would be kind of the most junior, or an admin type of assistant as a junior hire. There's a mid-level hire, which is an OBM, online business manager. And then there's like a cultivated next step, which starts to transition into more strategy, which is an integrator or COO. Some people call them GMs. So there's multiple different definitions, but once we get the clarity within your business, then we can start to create okay, what level and how much time do we think that this is going to take? So we make some assumptions.
Right.
And what I say is these are assumptions, and we always have to use the dial to test it and see. And if they're delivering and we want to continue to develop them in our business, we give them more hours, or we start to think about how are we not just attracting the right talent, but how are we attracting, developing, and therefore retaining the right talent with our business?
Right. Totally. And you hit the nail on the head, because one thing that I did not expect with this hire was I originally was thinking I'll give this person administrative tasks. We'll get started with that. Right. What I didn't realize was she dove headfirst into client service and correspondence and became the intake of all client questions. And not only that, was texting our clients, jumped on our text message thread, became the first line of defense, and really just escalated any really technical questions or issues to me. I could not tell you, like, I did not expect her to take that on so quickly. I thought that would be kind of a phased, rollout. Took it on right away, hit the ground running. And I did not expect, that was the biggest ROI for me, was how much time I didn't realize I was spending answering tiny email questions, or just really kind of mulling over how to communicate with clients, like how to respond. But the filtration of all of that was just amazing. So I think I tend to underestimate, right? I don't want to give them too much. I don't want to go above their head. I don't want to make it too challenging. But I think when you can engage in a conversation around, hey, are you comfortable with this? Because I'd like to give you more. It actually makes the person feel good most of the time, that you want to trust them with more, especially if you have the right person in that role. They want to be challenged and they want to grow. So it was a huge thing for me to let go of more stuff that, oh, you can do this. Cool. Here's more. And then I realized, wow, this is just she's really evolved the role in just the short time I've had her.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Question, just to like pull this again, one more string to kind of loop this full
Sure.
speed. One of the things I want to understand is, how has having, I feel like we should be using her name. I feel bad.
Yeah. Her name's Courtney. Any one of my clients.
Courtney, we love you, Courtney. You're a unicorn.
Yes.
How does having Courtney on the team, how has that shifted what you're doing day to day, and shifted where your focus is, and therefore what you're able to bring to the business? Talk about the results of that.
Night and day. So I can now sit down for a focused task and finish it.
What a luxury.
Well, it's interesting because I can now block my calendar. I can know that this is all taken care of, and we have communication in place. Like, we use Slack, for example, right? So if something comes up, she Slacks me, we get around to it. We have structured meetings, right? So there's actually, by having her there, it actually created a container to deal with these things in their dedicated spots in the calendar, so that it wasn't like this pressure that it hits Shannon's inbox and Shannon must deal with it. Like, there was nobody I could give it to, so I had to deal with it. And everything became top priority. right? Everything was urgent. Everything was important.
Mhm.
So it's actually disciplined me into blocking that time and carving it out, knowing that, well, Courtney's going to go handle that so I can go deal with other things. And it allowed me to stay focused without having that little like squirrel moment of looking at my inbox and realizing I had stuff to do there. And I shifted from, I would say it this way, I shifted from managing my email inbox as my full-time job to actually doing the work.
I love that I literally I just wrote down, or I had this memory of my first ever mentor sat me down in one of my first couple of months. He was the president of PepsiCo Canada at the time. And he said, Jackie, you can have a full-time job just checking your email. You got to leave that thing and go do what you need to do and come back to it and get to it when you need to get to it.
And that was my full-time job, Jackie, for years. That was my full-time job in corporate. My entire day was driven by what emails I was going to get that day. And culturally, that's embedded in me, where my to-do list is dictated by my inbox. And shifting that paradigm for me just made me go, wow, okay, so I don't need to look at the inbox all the time. Okay, now what do I do? And it's just opened up a lot.
So you see, even like what, look at the ripple, right? So we started talking about how as solopreneurs, we get to this place where we become reactive in hiring versus proactive. And yet when we are proactive in hiring and we find the right person and that person unlocks our capacity, what then happens for us as leaders is we can step into being more proactive in business and less reactive to an email.
Absolutely.
And so it's this like trickle down effect. And that's where the fear of hiring sometimes blocks us from living our true capability and the capacity in which we can serve. And I would be curious, just because I'm looking at your, the actual podcast name of like, keep what you earn. Did you earn more because you hired somebody?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a myth buster for people. People are like, I'm going to go bankrupt hiring. I'm like, well, actually, when we get the right hire, my philosophy is we should see a mass return on that hire. Early stages, we might see 4 or 5x on their salary as an example. When we get into people like hiring somebody for sales specifically, I like to see 8 to 10x their salary. So I don't know if you have the math in your head, but could you give a rough range of what you think you've unlocked in your business with having somebody there to support you?
I mean, I have opened up the capacity for, 3 CFO clients, which is roughly, we'll say between 5 and 8K a month.
Wow.
And she costs less than half that. And she'll be costing me more because I'm going to be giving her more hours. But the beauty of it is I see a return on every hour she's spending because it's driving results that I can actually see.
Amazing. And that's, you've hit the right person. You've got the right person in the right seat at the right time when you start to see that your time is now in a space where you're able to bring on new clients, you're having different conversations, you're proactively looking at your business, you're even spending time thinking about her development, your team's development, outside of sitting at that inbox, seeing something hit it, and all of a sudden it's like the sense of urgency. Or I was really guilty of this. It was like somebody was like, jump. And I was like, how high? Because I was so conditioned around serving. And the client's always right, coming from an HR background. And it was such a paradigm shift for me. So I'm so proud of you. That is so epic. And it's amazing to think about how many more people you can serve now.
Yeah. I appreciate you so much for all of your guidance in that whole process. And I know we'll be talking again soon as I look at my next hire, but, and for those of you who have lived in corporate and know that whole world, like you can break free from that mentality. And what's funny is that you are so in, and you know this too, Jackie, you're so in it that you don't realize that you've been doing that. And it does take a little bit of an awakening through these types of questions, right? To go, oh, I have been professionally managing an inbox for a while, thinking that's my job. And then when you have that paradigm shift, it's just a game changer. So thank you for allowing me to do that and for asking me tough questions in our strategy sessions and today, because it's definitely helpful. So what I'd love to do is wrap up our interviews with a couple of rapid fire questions for you. And then we're going to hear all about how folks can experience their own strategy sessions with you and get in touch. So Starting with
Beautiful.
number one, Jackie, what's one investment that you can't live without?
One investment I can't live without is I always have to be investing in coaches.
Mm,
I just believe that if I look at my entire life, having mentors, coaches, investing, and that can be in my health, that can be in my business, that can be in relationships, that's across the gamut of whatever's a priority for me in that year. I believe that when we place our money against things that are important to us, it truly does unlock the next step.
totally
And
agree.
you and I met in a mastermind as an example. So you and I
Yeah,
both had to invest to even meet to be having this podcast today.
exactly. And I think that that all led to the impact of where I am right now. So there's such a ripple effect when you just decide to invest time, money, or both in something that you find important. Um, what did you learn about money that turned out not to be true?
My gosh, my entire life was untrue. I'm like, thankfully, we have the same mentor in Chris Harder who really shifted my mindset around money. And one of the things that I struggled with a lot around money for a long time is that conversations around money were tense, or there was always fighting about money. And it was the one and only thing that was in my household when I was young where I would hear kind of the ripple around money. And I really think that a lot of my overachieving mentality and why I stayed in corporate so long is that I just wanted more and more money. But you and I both know that there are definite abilities to kind of hit your ceiling in corporate when it comes to earning. And so as I shifted away from what can I get and instead became an entrepreneur and started to think about how can I serve, everything about money shifted. Abundance is within money and a lot of other things in relationships and community that is just so available to all of us. We just have to give ourselves permission to step into it. And so that was a big one. The other one that just showed up is energy is money. So
Mm,
money is energy, energy is money. And the more I did spiritually, the more I became awakened to that.
perfect. And lastly, what makes you feel like a millionaire?
Having conversations like this. Hanging out with Shannon.
I I actually love that because it's actually true for me too, that I feel so privileged and it makes me feel wealthy to be able to think at this level and to operate at this level because as you said, to operate from a place of abundance, to have, to share knowledge on a daily basis for free and to relate to others' experiences like that. Totally
I
agree.
couldn't agree more. I come from a place of, I don't take it lightly that my last name's Service. People find it funny because I always talk about serving others and people pull paradigms from that. But it really does come to, I'm in alignment and my soul's on fire when I can share and teach and learn and listen. And that is what these podcasts are. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. And frankly, that you've started a podcast and you're sharing your wisdom with so many out there. It's
Thank
incredible.
you. Thank you. Really proud of the podcast and I've absolutely loved it. And thank you all for listening. So lastly, Jackie, how can folks get in touch with you, learn more about what you do and engage in their own strategy sessions?
Beautiful. Yeah. I literally across all platforms at Jackie Serviss. You can come. I hang out a lot on Instagram. I also hang out right now a lot on LinkedIn. So if either one of those platforms feels in alignment with you, please send me a voice note, send me a message. I'm always on there getting back to people. JackieServiss.com also has some good free resources. People can grab interview guides and different frameworks that I use when I'm starting to think through this. But I hope today will at least get people starting to think through a more strategic way of hiring versus just, hiring friends or just looking at what everybody else is doing and hiring because of that. So hopefully there was some value add here for the listeners and that you guys can start to think about who do you need to proactively hire next.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I know that you folks will be jotting down all of your top things you're looking for when you're hiring and probably be inspired to start the process now, which I hope. And real quick, Serviss is Serviss. So
It is. Thank you. Good call out.
Yeah. So make sure you're following Jackie. All the links will be there in the show notes for you. Jackie, thank you again for hopping on, and we can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you so much, Shannon.